In the annals of psychology, there are figures whose influence extends far beyond the confines of clinical practice, reaching into the realms of philosophy and spirituality. Carl Gustav Jung was one such individual, a visionary who dared to explore the darkest recesses of the human psyche. Unlike his contemporaries, who viewed the mind as merely a repository of thoughts and emotions, Jung saw it as a vast, dynamic landscape teeming with archetypes, symbols, and the collective unconscious. For Jung, spirituality was not an archaic relic, but an integral part of the human experience, deeply rooted in the very fabric of our psyche. He believed that life is not simply a series of random events, but an unfolding pattern shaped by unseen forces, guiding us toward our destiny. What we often perceive as chance or coincidence is, in reality, a manifestation of profound unconscious processes, striving for expression in the external world. If we examine the question of love that constantly eludes us from a Jungian perspective, we gain a new understanding. If our external reality is a reflection of our inner world, then love that remains unattainable is not merely a random occurrence, but a significant event. It may be painful, but it can also be crucial for our growth and development. Sometimes, life points us towards someone with an inexplicable force. We feel a deep connection with this person, yet despite our strong attraction, the relationship does not materialize. Obstacles arise at every turn, the timing is off, distances seem insurmountable. It seems as if an invisible force is constantly pushing us away from this love. Why does this happen? What does it mean? The answer may be found in the depths of our psyche, in the intricate dance between the conscious and unconscious. Carl Jung, the eminent Swiss psychoanalyst, rejected the idea of meaningless coincidences, asserting that behind every external event lie profound internal psychological processes. In other words, when love slips away and doors close with striking precision, it is not merely blind chance, but a manifestation of a pattern. And patterns, according to Jung, are never devoid of meaning. The denial of love, as a rule, is not limited to interaction with another person, but represents a collision with the powerful forces that determine the trajectory of our lives. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening?" it is far more important to ask ourselves, "What am I supposed to realize in this situation?" It is here that the concept of synchronicity, developed by Jung, becomes crucial. He was convinced that certain events, especially those that defy rational explanation, are signs indicating the existence of a deeper order in reality. When love departs but leaves behind tangible traces, the logical question arises: is this an obstacle or a message encoded in the fabric of existence? In moments when love remains unrealized, our mind actively seeks explanations, trying to understand whether it was simply bad timing, a mistake made, or a valuable lesson. However, some farewells do not bring clear and unambiguous answers, leaving only a sense of incompleteness, as if the story refuses to come to a conclusion. These are not just memories that continue to live in our minds, but something more subtle and elusive, a kind of pattern of signs that constantly reminds us of the loss. Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, describing it as the interaction between external events and internal processes that is so evident and expressive that it cannot be explained by mere chance. While ordinary coincidences seem meaningless and devoid of significance, synchronicities carry a special weight, an almost tangible presence, demanding our close attention and understanding. When the shadows of past passion persistently remind us, be it a melody that pierces the heart, an unexpected encounter like a scene from the past, or a book that appears at just the right moment, one cannot help but wonder, has the connection been preserved? And if so, in what form does it manifest? Sometimes these are barely perceptible hints, a name dropped in conversation, a familiar place that appears here and there, a phrase from a book that seems addressed to you personally. These signs are not intrusive, but it is impossible to ignore them. It seems as if the universe itself is responding, as if events are unfolding in a bizarre pattern, both personal and mysterious. But sometimes the signs of fate strike a blow, a dream that resurrects long-forgotten episodes, a repeating sequence of numbers that haunts everywhere, or an old letter that emerges from oblivion after years, as if the universe had carefully preserved it until the time was right. These phenomena defy logic, but possess such striking accuracy that it is impossible to dismiss them as a coincidence. As Jung said, the unconscious speaks to us not with words, but with symbols. In the realm of existence, when an event echoes repeatedly, it transcends mere coincidence, morphing into a profound message yearning for interpretation. Love, though it may not blossom fully, yet refuses to fade entirely, does not necessarily signal a call for reunion. Instead, it could be highlighting an unresolved chapter, an aspect demanding acknowledgement and acceptance before one can truly turn the page. Some individuals choose to dismiss these signs, attributing them to the mind's whimsical play, while others, conversely, succumb to their allure, mistaking them for harbingers of rekindled passion. However, synchronicity is neither a promise nor a command. It does not dictate actions, but rather urges awareness. The subconscious tirelessly attempts to connect with us, yet only a select few heed its voice, and even fewer grasp that these signs point not to another person, but to unresolved internal conflicts. Ignoring synchronicity equates to missing an opportunity, for the psyche does not persistently repeat the same signals without reason. If specific images, memories, or events resurface repeatedly in our consciousness, it signifies not just nostalgia for the past, but a pressing need for deeper reflection. The true meaning of events may not always be obvious, but it is never without significance. Ignoring these recurring patterns will not make them disappear. On the contrary, the stronger the resistance, the more persistent they will become. At times, life itself seems to communicate not through rational explanations, but through a series of events. The question is not whether these signs hold any meaning, but whether we are willing to acknowledge their presence. Especially during times of loss, the existence of synchronicity points to the operation of deeper forces. Love that fades, but continues to resonate in our lives, is not merely a sad tale of separation, but a confrontation with the unseen forces shaping our personal growth. If these patterns are not random, what governs them? Carl Jung believed that something greater lies beneath the fleeting desires of the ego, the very core of the psyche, guiding events in a direction that the conscious mind cannot yet grasp. Not everything our heart desires is meant to stay with us forever. The true self does not follow fleeting longings, but strives for wholeness. While the ego seeks security, satisfaction, and recognition, the self points to a more elevated path, which may require detours, overcoming obstacles, and at times, emotional pain. The experience of unrequited love is not merely the loss of a specific person. It is the exposure of the discrepancy between what we consciously desire and what we unconsciously need. Some expressions of love are like revelations. They transform everything they touch, awaken what has long been hidden in the depths of the soul, stir dormant emotions, and then suddenly vanish. Such a loss seems unfair, as if something important was taken from us before it could fully unfold. However, the self takes nothing away without a valid reason. If love is denied, despite its depth and sincerity, it is often because it distracts us from what is most important for our individuation and personal growth. Deep within the human psyche exists an observer whose vision extends far beyond momentary pain and immediate disappointments. This self is not merely a mindless mechanism of denial, but a wise strategist capable of redirecting the flow of our love in a safer direction. What at first seems like a painful loss may actually be an act of protection, shielding us from even greater harm. At times, love that seems perfect and all-consuming harbors hidden dangers that can lead our soul astray from its true path, predetermined from above. While the conscious mind desperately seeks rational explanations for what is happening, the self communicates with us in a different language, the language of intuition and premonitions, the language not of words, but of subtle movements. It skillfully shapes the circumstances of our lives so that the true meaning of events becomes clear only after time has passed, when the veil of passion falls from our eyes. Resistance to this inner guidance is quite natural. The ego, convinced of the infallibility of its desires, stubbornly fights any obstacles, considering them annoying hindrances that must be overcome at all costs. But if the same doors continue to close before us again and again, if certain relationships, despite all our efforts, cannot be established, then a deeper and more powerful force comes into play. The self does not need our permission. It acts in accordance with a higher harmony, even if its actions initially seem painful and unfair to us. The love that constantly eludes us is not merely a random external event, but a reflection of the complex internal dynamics of our psyche, a perpetual tension between the desire for closeness and the need for personal growth. When the self says a firm no, it's not an act of cruelty, but a wise direction, helping us see what we are not yet ready or willing to look at. The crucial question is not whether the self is speaking to us, but whether we are ready to listen to its voice. The loss of love often occurs unnoticed, in silence, but it has the power to change everything around us. It comes suddenly, leaving no time for preparation, no opportunity to erect protective barriers. Just yesterday, love was near, warming our daily lives with its warmth and closeness, and today it is gone, and in its place yawns a void, quiet but undeniable. Outwardly, nothing seems to have changed, but inwardly, everything feels foreign and incomplete. Carl Jung called the process of approaching this inner wholeness individuation, and it begins not in moments of well-being and security, but precisely where something is missing, where we have to deal with what remains when love leaves. This emptiness is not a punishment, but an invitation to growth, an opportunity to go beyond the familiar and known, opening up new horizons of self-discovery and self-realization. Initially, the realization of loss seems like an utterly unbearable burden. Within, an unquenchable desire flares up to understand, to fix, to turn back time. Obsessive memories, like merciless waves, crash again and again, only intensifying the feeling of a gaping void. Places that once served as a quiet harbor now seem lifeless and alien. Sincere attempts by friends to comfort a broken heart often fail to reach those deep, innermost corners of the soul where the pain has not yet found its resolution. Life continues its relentless course, but inside everything seems frozen in a stupor. It is in this agonizing silence that the process of individuation begins, a complex path of self-knowledge and personal growth. Where harmony of closeness once reigned, loneliness now prevails, and it is in this loneliness that the outlines of hitherto hidden, unconscious aspects of our self begin to emerge. Fears that were safely hidden behind the wall of relationships now come to light, naked and vulnerable. Patterns of behavior that have long gone unnoticed suddenly appear before us in all their ugliness, demanding recognition and profound change. The identity that we acquired in the flame of love begins to slowly but surely dissolve, like old skin, freeing up space for something completely new and unknown. This state is painful, devoid of a sense of security, but at the same time filled with vitality and potential. The easiest way out would be to try to drown out this emptiness, to escape into the arms of new love, to distract ourselves with fleeting hobbies, or to immerse ourselves in the usual routine. However, true individuation is not an escape from oneself, but a conscious interaction with what remains after the loss. This path requires tremendous patience and utmost honesty with oneself. Each conscious encounter with this inner emptiness reveals new facets of our personality, those that were overlooked or deliberately ignored in the past. Gradually, step by step, the initial feeling of all-consuming emptiness begins to transform into something else. The understanding comes that this loss is not just a tragic finale, but a valuable opportunity for self-discovery, a chance to connect with oneself on a much deeper level that was inaccessible within the comfortable safety of love. Individuation is not eradicating love from one's heart, but realizing who we are beyond it, without being tied to another person. Unrequited love is not just a source of pain and disappointment, but a unique opportunity for self-knowledge, which often goes unnoticed in happy and cloudless relationships. The path through this complex process requires us to be willing to remain open, even when everything inside desperately resists and seeks to shut out the outside world. Separation, often perceived as a personal defeat, appears in a different light with the growth of self-awareness. The loss of love relationships does not indicate your inadequacy, but rather points to areas of your personality that strive for development, recognition, and understanding. There is a reorientation from seeking confirmation from the outside to comprehending inner truth. Of course, this does not instantly relieve pain and does not bring immediate clarity, but it gives deep meaning to the experience. The very perception of love changes. It ceases to be something that can be won or lost, turning into a reflection of inner growth. In this new context, the breakup becomes a mentor, and the once frightening loneliness eventually acquires value, perhaps even becomes a necessity. That which begins as excruciating emptiness transforms into illumination. Individualization transmutes loss into wisdom, and absence into a new form of presence, not of another person, but of one's own whole self. In the silence that follows the departure of love, a certain movement is born. That which initially seems like a gaping abyss turns out to be a space filled with hidden possibilities. Jung, the insightful explorer of the human soul, recognized this potential and compared it to alchemy, the ancient art of transformation. For him, love was not merely an emotional connection, but a potent force capable of initiating profound inner transformations. When love departs, the soul is as if plunged into an invisible flame of inner heat, a flame that burns away all that no longer corresponds to its highest purpose. Alchemy taught about transformation through fire, a process that purifies from impurities and liberates something more precious. Similarly, the loss of love can feel like a searing fire, uncomfortable, all-consuming, and impossible to ignore. In this all-encompassing flame, not only cherished memories or deep attachments disappear, but also the protective layers of our personality, which once provided a sense of security, are burned away. Each moment of longing and heartache exposes new facets, ready for liberation. At first, this heat seems like an unbearable trial. The love that once served as a source of comfort and unwavering security now torments with relentless anxiety. The overwhelming desire to escape, distract oneself, and suppress this inner burning becomes all-consuming. The temptation of distraction beckons, and relationships that once seemed unthinkable transform into safe havens. However, like the alchemist's fire, these raging flames are not so easily tamed. They continue to rage because they serve a deeper, more profound purpose. They demand not escape, but recognition. That which is initially perceived as destruction gradually unfolds as a process of purification. Through the crucible of loss, the soul confronts its own illusions, its preconceptions about what love should be, who one should be in a relationship, and what true happiness truly means. These false images quietly crumble to dust, liberating truths that the heart might never have known otherwise. The inner fire brings to light hidden motives and long-standing wounds, not to punish, but to heal. This process is slow, requiring a delicate approach and often painful. As the ancient alchemists knew, true transformation requires patience, close attention, and a good deal of courage. Likewise, it takes considerable courage to remain alone with the emptiness of lost love, rather than fleeing from it in search of oblivion. Pain becomes a valuable tool of knowledge, revealing hidden layers of self that could not have manifested in the safe haven of love. The searing heat of the fire clarifies true values and burns away all that is superficial and extraneous. Gradually, a new clarity is born from the flames. The soul becomes aware of those parts of itself that were once hidden beneath the veil of dependence and insatiable desires. Qualities such as inner strength, unwavering resilience, and authenticity manifest in all their glory, born from the ashes of loss. The fire does not burn endlessly. It transforms. Ultimately, the heart learns to embrace solitude without feeling diminished or incomplete. The alchemy of the spirit does not promise instant relief from heartache or superficial consolation. Rather, it instructs us to value the state of uncertainty, to find deep meaning in discomfort, and to transform the soul. The loss of love becomes not so much a matter of seeking external attachment, but of discovering inner truth. The love we have lost appears not merely as a mirror reflecting our feelings, but as a powerful catalyst, a force that illuminates the hidden corners of our psyche and simultaneously ignites in us the ability to face them. In this intimate alchemy, the absence of love ceases to be a mere loss. It transforms into an invitation to a deeper dialogue, not with another person, but with those parts of ourself that have long languished, awaiting their discovery. The fire of transformation does not pass without leaving its mark. The loss of love changes everything around, transforming familiar feelings into something previously unknown. That which once warmed the soul now gapes with emptiness, and that which instilled confidence seems distant and unattainable. However, as Jung astutely observed, suffering is not merely pain to be endured stoically. It is a mighty force that shatters our illusions and opens doors to something greater. Suffering, accepted without resistance, becomes a gateway leading to transformation. Some wounds inflicted on the heart refuse to heal quickly. The world around us continues to live its life, but something within us seems to get stuck in that very moment when love was lost. The mind frantically searches for meaning, trying to construct a coherent story, but the suffering eludes any explanation. There are no ready-made answers. It simply remains with us, demanding attention, yearning to be felt to the fullest before it can transform. Memories take on immense weight, as if drawing the past into the present, and this process is impossible to control. A familiar scent, a casually dropped word, a shadow falling at an inopportune moment. All it takes is this to reopen old, seemingly healed wounds. But suffering is not an enemy. It does not come to punish or destroy. Its purpose is to show us what remains unresolved in the depths of our soul. There comes a turning point when suffering ceases to be an external impact and penetrates the very essence of a human being, becoming an integral part of their inner world. Pain undergoes a transformation, losing its connection to specific people or losses, and turns into something deeply personal, into long-standing wounds that existed long before love appeared, into fears that love once concealed but never managed to heal. Suffering forces a person to face what has always been present in their life, hiding in the hidden corners of consciousness behind a veil of distractions and everyday hustle. Carl Jung viewed suffering not as an annoying obstacle to be avoided at all costs, but as an integral part of the process of personal transformation. Like a ruthless sculptor, it destroys false notions and illusions, exposing the true essence of things. Suffering does not erase love from memory and does not demand oblivion. On the contrary, it calls for a deeper understanding, for a willingness to see what was hidden under the veil of longing and sadness. The human mind resists desperately, seeking saving loopholes, but suffering, if experienced to the fullest, leads not to destruction, but to spiritual ascension. Between the moment of loss and the realization of what is happening, there is a certain threshold, a special space where suffering ceases to be an enemy and acquires a different meaning. It loses its power over the heart, ceases to define the personality, and instead, like a cleansing fire, reveals what remains when everything superfluous and artificial falls away. Suffering does not disappear without a trace the moment its meaning becomes clear. It remains, but its influence undergoes fundamental changes. Thoughts take on a new direction, drawing the heart into those areas that it once avoided. What once seemed like a blatant injustice begins to reveal its underlying patterns, and with these patterns comes enlightenment. Beneath the surface of life, there is a powerful force shaping our experience in a way that the conscious mind cannot foresee. Jung considered this force a manifestation of the collective unconscious, going beyond personal will. The soul has its own path, and when it conflicts with worldly desires, internal tension arises. There are times in life when everything seems to favor love, but circumstances suddenly get out of control, defying rational explanation. Explaining the unexplainable. When paths of love diverge. It happens that two destinies, like comets, cross each other in the sky of life, creating a magnetic connection between them. It seems that the long-awaited merging is about to occur, but instead an unknown force pulls them apart. And although this connection is felt to the depths of the soul, it is not destined to unfold fully. In confusion, the mind tries to find a logical explanation for what is happening, because everything that resonates in the heart with such a strong vibration must be realized. But the soul, unlike the mind, is not subject to worldly vanity. It moves at its own pace, which is incomprehensible to the ego. Rejected love is often seen as a tragedy, but in reality, it can be a manifestation of higher wisdom. Some relationships do not reach their logical conclusion because they are not meant to. They are not mistakes or unfortunate misunderstandings, but rather milestones on the path of life that shape our personality without being the ultimate goal. Loss is never meaningless. It changes the direction of movement, makes us think about the eternal, and leaves behind questions that cannot be answered with logic alone. When love is hindered, internal resistance arises. The more we deny what is happening, the stronger our heart clings to the illusion that love must be fought for. But the soul is not interested in conquests. It does not measure love in categories of possession. It is driven by something deeper, not always coinciding with our momentary desires. The mind sees this as a loss, and the soul as a movement forward. What the world takes away from us is often what the soul does not need to hold on to. Love that fades, despite all our efforts, is not necessarily lost forever. Perhaps it has already fulfilled its mission. The tension between what is desired and what is actual is not a mistake, but proof that some higher power is at work in our lives, one that offers no explanations, but demands only unconditional trust. The universe does not withhold love for no reason. What at first seems like a loss, a rejection, or a cruel injustice often holds a hidden meaning that is revealed only with the passage of time. Carl Jung deeply understood that human existence is not chaotic, but is subject to patterns that transcend the possibilities of rational understanding. Life, with amazing precision, shapes each of our experiences, the meaning of which becomes clear only over time. If love repeatedly slips away, if no effort can hold it, it means that it is not destined to remain in our lives. Some partings seem unfair, as if something important was taken away before it could fully unfold. The heart refuses to accept this, being confident in the immutability of true love. But what if the universe's refusal is not a sentence, but a wise adjustment? What if this is not the end, but a subtle redirection to something not yet visible? The mind resists, seeking other explanations, but the self, on the contrary, acts with clarity. It does not take away what is necessary, but only eliminates what can no longer accompany us on our life path. There comes a moment when the inner struggle subsides, not because the longing disappears, but because it ceases to define our essence. The person who remained in the past, the love that never managed to fully blossom, the moments that seemed destined but did not end, all of this loses its weight. What previously seemed like a gaping emptiness begins to take on a new, unexpected form. The loss remains, but its meaning is gradually revealed. Rejected love is not just an experience of relationships with another person. It is a meeting with something larger, with the movement of the psyche, with the accuracy of the unconscious, with the quiet guidance of a force that transcends our personal will. Love that is truly destined to be does not require coercion. It comes together on its own. And if this does not happen, the universe teaches us an important lesson. The universe does not perform meaningless actions, taking away anything valuable, and nothing disappears for no reason. If there is a failure in matters of the heart, it means that this connection remained in the past, with no continuation in the future. It is important not to try to regain the lost feeling, but to understand what truths have been revealed thanks to this loss. Not every love story is destined for a long existence. Some of them come into our lives only to unleash the dormant forces and hidden possibilities within us.